Let's begin with some simple brain anatomy. The brain is made up of three basic parts. First is the brain stem. The brain stem controls basic body functions like breathing, blood circulation, and body temperature. Next is the cerebellum. The cerebellum controls muscle coordination, balance, and learning. And finally, the cerebral hemispheres, which control vision, hearing, sensations, movement, and thinking. Inside your brain, there are little things called neurons. Neurons gather and send signals throughout your body, and are also made up of three basic parts. First is the cell body. Second are dendrites, which are branch-like projections that make connections with other neurons. Third is the axon, which is a long projection that carries the message it's going to pass on.
People used to believe that once your brain was developed, it couldn't change. It couldn't grow. It was fixed at one intelligence level. However, Dr. Diamond and many other researchers and scientists have discovered that this isn't so. Your brain can continue to develop, to learn new skills and new experiences. To illustrate this, let's take some lab rats.
An experiment that was inspired by a man named Donald Hebb. Donald Hebb had free-ranging rodents that he kept in his home with his children. When he took those rodents to his laboratory, he found that they ran a better maze than the rats he kept locked up in his lab. This left him to speculate that rats confined to small, unstimulating cages would develop brains worse at solving problems than animals growing up in a stimulating environment, like large houses, with hallways, staircases, and human playmates. The experiment went something like this. There were two groups of rats, the enriched rats and the impoverished rats. The enriched rats were given a better environment with more companions and better food. The impoverished rats were secluded and weren't given any toys. Not only were the enriched rats able to finish the maze faster, but they had much larger brains because there was a greater number of thicker neurons.
So what does this mean for us as humans? How will enrichment affect a child, a parent, a school, or even a society? Let's start at the beginning. The very beginning.
Ray is about to be a first-time mother. As soon as she found out she was pregnant, she went from her full-time job as a librarian to part-time. Good thinking, Ray. This will help keep the stress out of your life, which in turn will keep the stress out of your baby's life. Ray has also kept careful track of her nutrients and vitamins in her diet. She shunned alcohol, cigarette smoke, drugs, and Ray, even caffeine. Ray even went walking every morning to get some exercise in. She joined a prenatal exercise program as well. Her and her husband Adam have even been talking to their unborn child and letting it listen to music. They've even trained it to kick wherever mom or dad pushed with their hand.
A child that was enriched in the room learned how to read, talk, stand, and even grew teeth earlier. So good luck, Ray and Adam. You're on the right track. Now let's move to our next family, who's already had their first son.
Charlene is the proud mother of Liam, a 1-year-old smiley and active boy. Charlene is a stay-at-home mother. How does she keep Liam's mind stimulated and keep his environment enriched? Let me show you. Take a look at these images. To the right is what your baby's neurons look like at birth, and to the left you see what they look like after only 3 months of age. This image is what it looks like after 24 months. Would you want to leave all that activity to go to waste by not enriching it in the proper way? You're doing well with feeding Liam a nutritious diet. Your son is obviously growing and needs some help. You're also doing the most important thing for a child that's Liam's age. You're loving him and being there for him as he develops. The opposite of this, neglect and abuse, would be absolutely detrimental to his development. Too much punishment and restrictions to your child can actually stop his neurons from growing and splitting. A child psychologist named Bruce Perry said, "One of the hardest things to communicate to people in our culture is not just hitting kids and screaming and yelling at them leads to injuries, but that the absence of touch, the absence of eye contact, leads to something not growing." Loving your child may be the most important thing, but talking to him is a close second. Be sure and tell Liam the things that you're doing or the things that he's doing. Read to him to help him be more familiar with language. Give him simple signs for words like arms out for airplanes or panting as a symbol for a dog. Another thing that will be helpful is to stimulate all of his senses by playing with him, letting him figure out problems and giving him the opportunity to choose his own activities.
If you want your son to be enriched to the fullest, don't let him be an observer. Let him be an active participant. Charlene, enjoy your son at this age. We're going to head over to a different family.
Meet Christy. Christy has 2 children, a 6-year-old Lucas and a 9-year-old Maya. Both of these age groups are similar but have their differences. You want them both to excel, so what should Christy do to enrich their minds as best as she can? First, let them both read. Reading improves not only their vocabulary and their pronunciation, but it works on the neurons that help with grammar. Marian Diamond said, "This means that the older the children and the more language they have heard in their environment and learn to speak themselves, the more altered the brain becomes and the more neural circuits are pruned into a left hemisphere pattern of specialization for grammar." Going along with this, let them express themselves with artwork. Maya should be going beyond doodling at this point and moving into concrete and abstract thought in her art. Let them explain what it means. Talk to them about it. Something else that will certainly help Lucas out is an early ear for music. Most parents go for piano or the violin. He is already rather talented, which really will help his IQ. So Christy, do what you can to keep him taking those piano lessons. And Maya too. A lot of parents worry about what to do with their children in these ages with all their free time. As important as being on a sports team and taking all kinds of lessons are for them, playtime is of equal importance. It will help their language skills, along with their social development and their ability to share and empathize. Let them play with each other and with friends.
Encourage Maya to use her imagination in her games. She is at the stage where she can now give her dolls different personalities and put them into different situations all in her mind. Don't worry, Christy. Your children will be well-rounded and their neurons will continue to grow and mature. Now finally, the adolescent brain. Many parents wonder how they can enrich such an impressionable person. Let's take a look at Kristen and her family and see how they effectively do it.
This is Kristen, her husband Rudy, and her 15-year-old daughter Cammie. Kristen and Rudy are about to take on Cammie as an adolescent. One of the main things that can enrich an adolescent brain and help fortify those neurons even more is the stable job of the father and a well-kept home. Dr. Diamond says, an impoverished, unstimulating environment has as much or more impact on the adolescent brain as does deliberate enrichment. Another thing Kristen can do for her daughter would be to try and maintain what influences her. Dr. Diamond mentions rap music specifically. Most rap songs leave a message that poisons the brain and make otherwise moral things seem unimportant or even worthless. Kristen and Rudy have decided to ban drugs and alcohol in their home. They help her understand the effects of drugs and all the negatives that come along with them. A teenager's main occupation at this age is schoolwork and play. Schoolwork should be important to both the parent and the child. Kristen always tries to help Cammie with her homework. Teenagers' brains, similar to adult brains, don't take in knowledge as quickly as younger brains. They have to work harder to understand and to memorize because the neurons that are already there are strong, but without something supporting them for a longer amount of time, they will simply wither and disappear. This doesn't mean they can't learn. Harry Shugani, who studies how the brain's energy use works, says, "It's never too late to learn, but I don't think you have maximized the way nature intended for you to be able to learn within a certain time if you don't take advantage of that. If you haven't done it and you want to do it later, that's okay, but it will just become more difficult." Along with responsibilities in homework comes the hard work of a musical instrument. It helps keep the brain strong and fortifies those neurons. And as with any age, Kristen, get your daughter involved with sports or other extracurricular activities. Let her socialize and perfect the skills of sharing and empathizing.
Enrichment tips and pointers can be applied by both parents and teachers alike. And remember, it's never too late to start. Do what you can now to enrich the brain and keep those magic trees of mind fortified and flourishing.